What if I told you you're wasting 3 times the effort in your garden than you actually need to? Picture a world where weeds simply don't sprout, and you only have to water your beds once every 2 weeks, even during a heat wave. Does that sound like a fantasy? It's not. It's just smart physics meeting good biology. Today, we're talking about mulch. But wait! Don't click away yet. Most home gardeners use it completely wrong, and they are actually suffocating their own harvest. I'm going to tell you the secrets that fertilizer companies won't share. Are you ready for the secret that will transform your garden from backbreaking labor into a relaxing retreat? Let's dive in. First, let's take a look at nature. Have you ever walked into a forest and seen bare, black dirt? No, you haven't. The ground is always covered by fallen leaves, pine needles, or dry grass. Nature absolutely hates naked soil. To nature, bare earth is an open wound that must be immediately healed. Yet by tilling our gardens and leaving our beds exposed and black, we are working directly against nature. Mulching isn't just a trend. It's an effort to restore the soil's natural defenses, its protective layer, its skin. In this video, we are going to break down every type of this soil's skin and figure out which one is the perfect fit for your specific tomatoes, cucumbers, and berry bushes. We'll be relying heavily on organic farming principles, blended with a little bit of science and chemistry. This way, you understand the why behind the processes, instead of just blindly following a set of instructions. Let's begin with the most critical question. Why do we even need mulch? Most people assume it's just a decorative blanket, but it's actually an entire thriving ecosystem. Picture a sponge. When the soil is bare, the sun bakes all the moisture out of it in just a couple of hours. A hard crust forms on top. This crust essentially acts like a lid, cutting off oxygen access to the roots. The plant literally starts to suffocate. You rush out with the watering can, you break up the earth, damaging the delicate roots, and the whole vicious cycle repeats. A generous layer of mulch breaks that cycle completely. Beneath it, the soil is always damp, loose, and cool. That's where beneficial bacteria and earthworms thrive. They constantly break down the bottom layer of mulch into rich humus, feeding your plants 24/7 without you lifting a finger. This is the first and most crucial secret. Mulch isn't decoration. It's a factory for nutrition and total climate control. Now let's talk about straw. This is arguably the queen of mulches. It's golden, light, and just beautiful. It's absolutely perfect for nightshades, things like tomatoes, peppers, and eggplants. Why? Because straw is naturally hollow inside. That trapped air acts like an excellent insulator. During the day, it reflects the sun, preventing the roots from overheating, and then, at night, it helps retain the warmth of the soil. Plus, straw breaks down very slowly. This means you won't have to constantly replenish it every single week. But there is one crucial caveat you need to be aware of. The straw must be clean and seed-free. If you buy straw contaminated with grains, you will quickly end up with a gorgeous wheat lawn in your garden bed that you'll have to constantly weed out. Always inspect the bale before you buy it. And finally, remember this. Straw does consume a small amount of nitrogen as it decomposes, but only from the very top layer of the soil, the layer where the main roots usually aren't present. So, the myth about straw causing nitrogen starvation is highly exaggerated. Now, hay, that's a whole different story, and you have to be careful with it. A lot of people confuse hay and straw. Straw is essentially the dry stalks left over from grain crops. Hay, on the other hand, is mowed and dried grass, often from a pasture or meadow. Hay contains far more nutrients than straw. Think of it as a natural energy bar for your garden beds. But here is the catch. Fresh hay almost always contains weed seeds. Millions of them. If you spread a layer of fresh hay, you risk introducing the exact weeds you've been fighting for years. However, there is a trick. If the hay has sat for a year or two and composted or heated up internally, the seeds lose their viability. Aged, well-rotted hay is pure gold. It's rich in Bacillus subtilis, a beneficial bacterium that actively suppresses fungal diseases. including the dreaded late blight. That's why old hay is absolutely the best friend for your potatoes. Let's talk about using lawn clippings. It's easily the most accessible material out there for most people. Many people cut their lawn and throw the clippings straight onto the garden bed. Stop right there. That's where the common mistake happens. Fresh grass is packed with moisture and high in nitrogen. If you pile it on too thickly, it won't dry. It will start to cook. Temperatures inside that thick layer can soar up to 60 degrees Celsius. This heat will literally cook the stems of your delicate cucumbers or tomatoes. Plus, as it decomposes, it turns into a slimy, foul-smelling mess that instantly attracts flies. So, what's the right way to handle it? Always make sure to dry the clippings out in the sun for a day or two before applying them to your beds, and always apply it in a thin layer. Once the first layer is dry, you can add the next. This way, the grass becomes a fantastic slow-release nitrogen fertilizer, rather than a stinky, slimy mess right under your nose. Sawdust. Oh, the debate surrounding it. Some people claim it acidifies the soil, while others warn that it sucks out all the nitrogen. Let's get to the bottom of this. Fresh sawdust is genuinely nitrogen hungry. The bacteria that break it down need nitrogen to do their job, and they take it directly from the soil, essentially robbing your plants. If you scatter raw, fresh sawdust, your plant leaves might start turning yellow. The solution is simple. Before using it, soak the sawdust in a solution of urea or ammonium nitrate, or just stick to aged dark brown sawdust, the kind that's been sitting outside for a year or two. Now, concerning acidity, sawdust from coniferous wood can indeed slightly acidify the soil, but this happens very slowly. For most crops growing in neutral soil, this really isn't a concern. However, if you're growing blueberries or hydrangeas, coniferous sawdust is just what the doctor ordered. Since we're on the subject of pine needles, let's discuss pine bark. This is premium mulch. It looks gorgeous, smells like the forest, and lasts for years. Pine bark is the perfect option for flower beds, shrubs, and fruit trees. It allows water to penetrate deeply, but drastically reduces surface evaporation. Weeds find it extremely difficult to break through a layer of bark. However, pine bark is less suitable for vegetable patches. Why? Because it's cumbersome to pull back when you're planting, and it gets in the way of tilling or cultivating the soil. Plus, coarser bark doesn't sit tightly against the ground, leaving gaps and hiding spots for slugs and snails. Use this bark where you want to truly plant it and forget its solution for several years, under apple trees, currant bushes, or roses. And yes, it also slightly acidifies the soil, which most berry bushes and acid-loving plants prefer. Compost and humus. Most people think of these primarily as fertilizers, but they also make excellent mulch. This is arguably the most nutrient-rich type of covering you can use. If you have heavy, dense clay soil, mulching with compost can work miracles. Earthworms will pull the compost particles down into the subsoil, aerating and loosening the ground better than any tiller or plough ever could. Additionally, the dark colour of compost helps the soil warm up faster in the spring. This is an excellent head start for early plantings. Think radishes, greens, and carrots. Unlike straw, which reflects sunlight, dark compost absorbs the heat. But there is a drawback. Compost is not as effective at suppressing weed growth as wood chips or straw. Weed seeds actually love sprouting directly in it. Therefore, you need to apply a very thick layer, or alternatively, cover the compost with a thin layer of straw to block out the light and inhibit germination. Cardboard on paper. Sounds odd, right? But this is actually a lifesaver for tackling seriously overgrown land. If you have a plot covered in aggressive weeds, like couch grass, put the shovel down. Instead, just cover the whole area with thick, plain cardboard. No tape or coloured printing allowed. Then pile grass clippings or soil on top. The cardboard will completely block out 100% of the light. Without light, every single weed, even the most stubborn ones, will die. Over the course of the season, the cardboard will soften up, earthworms will consume it, and by the following spring, you'll have loose, clean soil without ever having to dig. This is known as the no-dig or lazy bed method. You can also use newspapers, but make sure they are laid down in several thick layers. Most modern printing ink is now considered safe, but it's always best to avoid those glossy, coloured pages. Finally, use cardboard in your garden walkways to suppress grass. This will keep your paths clean and dry, even after a heavy rain. Now let's talk about inorganic mulches. We are primarily looking at plastic sheeting and landscape fabrics. Geotextiles are the go-to choice for commercial farmers and for busy people in general. The biggest upside is that you lay it down once and you don't worry about it for 3 to 4 years. It's perfect for growing strawberries. The berries rest on a clean surface, preventing rot, and weeds simply cannot grow. The black colour absorbs heat, which speeds up ripening by 1 to 2 weeks in the spring. However, there are drawbacks. Soil covered by plastic sheeting doesn't breathe as well as soil covered by organic mulch. Earthworms won't thrive there, and nutrients aren't naturally incorporated back into the soil. During hot summer weather, black sheeting can potentially overheat the plant roots to dangerous, critical temperatures. If you live in a southern climate, it's best to cover the plastic with straw to help reflect excessive sunlight. And one last warning, ants often move in beneath the fabric, building what amount to genuine underground megacities. Let's talk about rocks, gravel, and crushed stone. This is what we call dry mulch. It's often used in rock gardens, alpine slides, and general landscaping projects. While it's a controversial choice for a typical vegetable garden, it's absolutely perfect for certain culinary herbs, things like thyme, rosemary, and lavender. The stones absorb heat during the day and slowly release it throughout the night. This creates a dry microclimate right at the base of the plant, preventing rot and protecting plants that are sensitive to excess moisture. However, if you ever decide to dismantle this type of bed, removing the rocks from the soil is a painstaking process. Be sure to use a layer of landscape fabric underneath the stones so they don't sink into the ground over time. Also, keep in mind that rocks can get scorching hot in direct sun. Delicate leaves like those on lettuce or cucumber will simply fry if they come into contact with the superheated gravel. Let's zero in on a specific crop: tomatoes. They absolutely hate high air humidity, but they thrive in moist soil. Sounds contradictory, right? Mulch is the key solution here. It locks the moisture right into the ground, stopping it from evaporating and spiking the humidity inside your greenhouse. Plus, there's the issue of blight. The spores live right in the soil. When you water bare earth, the splashback hits the lower leaves, infecting the plant. A good layer of mulch, like straw or partially dried grass, acts as a physical barrier. No splash means far fewer diseases. For tomatoes, straw or aged hay works best. The layer needs to be substantial. Don't skimp on the material. Aim for a thickness of about 4 to 6 inches. One crucial reminder: never pile the mulch tight against the stem. Always leave an inch or 2 of clearance around the base. This prevents the stem from staying wet and developing stem rot. Cucumbers and zucchini. These crops are massive water hogs. They have shallow root systems that can dry out almost instantly. So for them, mulching is truly a matter of life and death. Cucumbers especially love what we call hot mulch, typically made from partially dried or slightly wilted grass clippings. This material breaks down quickly, releasing a lot of carbon dioxide. For plants, carbon dioxide is as important as oxygen is for us. They rely on it for photosynthesis. Cucumbers grown on this type of bedding will shoot up and thrive rapidly. Compost is another perfect option for mulching these crops. The main rule for cucumbers is this: the soil beneath the mulch must always remain consistently moist. If you notice the mulch itself has dried out, water it directly. The organic matter will soak up the water and slowly deliver it down to the root zone. Strawberries or garden berries. The English name itself, strawberry, literally meaning strawberry, actually hints at the best solution: mulch. The two primary choices are straw or pine needles. Pine needles are often superior because they possess natural antifungal properties, and their scent helps deter common pests. Plus, berries resting on the needles stay dry and clean, even after a heavy downpour. Grey mould is the biggest scourge of strawberry crops, but with a thick pine needle mulch, you can virtually forget about it. Just ensure the layer of needles remains loose and airy to promote proper circulation. If you choose to use straw, cut it into smaller pieces if you are propagating the plants, as this allows the runners to root more easily. If you are not propagating, use longer straw. It offers far better physical support for the ripening fruit. Garlic and onions are often planted in the fall for overwintering. In this scenario, mulch acts like a protective blanket, shielding the bulbs from freezing, especially during snowless winters. The problem starts in the spring. The ground beneath the mulch stays frozen too long, and the bulbs can actually rot or spoil. So as soon as the snow melts, you must rake the garlic mulch aside immediately. Give the ground time to warm up thoroughly. Only once the soil is warm enough should you replace it. For onions, compost or peat moss works perfectly. These materials are light and won't impede the shoots from reaching the light. Sawdust is also a good choice for winter garlic, but come spring, you should either remove it completely or mix it thoroughly into the top layer of soil. Raspberries and other berry bushes. Raspberries are naturally woodland plants. In the wild, they thrive on mounds of fallen branches and leaf litter. They absolutely love coarse organic material. Use chopped branches, wood chips, thick corn stalks, or sunflower stems. Pile all of these right under your raspberry canes. They aren't bothered by acidic conditions. Instead, they crave moisture and loose, airy soil. Raspberry roots are shallow, so tilling or disturbing the soil around them is strictly forbidden. Mulching completely replaces the need for cultivation. Create a layered cake or lasagna garden approach beneath your canes. Start with a layer of cardboard, then add branches, and finally top with grass clippings or hay. Your raspberries will reward you with enormous berries, the kind your neighbours have only dreamed of. The key is to refresh this entire layer every single year. Let's talk about pests. Many people worry that mulch will attract mice and slugs, and it's true that risk exists. Slugs thrive in the moisture and shade found under leaves or grass. If you have a severe slug infestation, remove the mulch during the rainy season. Alternatively, switch to materials they won't want to crawl across, such as prickly pine needles, crushed eggshells, or large dry wood shavings. Slugs are soft-bodied creatures and dislike scraping their bellies. To deter mice, which often overwinter in straw mulch, try packing down the snow around the trees in winter. You can also embed fragrant herbs such as mint or wormwood directly into the mulch layer. Alternatively, use poisoned baits hidden inside tubes or bait stations to protect birds from accidental poisoning. The timing is everything. When exactly should you put down mulch? The biggest mistake people make is mulching way too early in the spring. You head out in April, the soil is still cold and soggy, and then you slam a thick layer of straw right on top. Guess what? You just built a refrigerator. That thick blanket will prevent the soil from warming up until possibly June. Your plants will just sit there, stressed and stunted, refusing to grow. Here is the ironclad rule. Wait until the soil is thoroughly warmed up. Go out and touch it. If it feels warm and pleasant to the touch, you are good to go. For most areas, that's usually late May or early June, depending entirely on where you live. The only exception is dark-coloured mulch, like compost or peat. Because these absorb sunlight, you can put them down a bit earlier to actually help heat the soil. Layer thickness. This is a case where you can have too much of a good thing. A layer that is too thin, just 1 to 2 centimetres, won't effectively suppress weeds or prevent moisture evaporation. Conversely, if the layer is too thick, over 15 centimetres, especially with dense organic matter, it will begin to decompose anaerobically without oxygen from the bottom up. This fermentation creates an acidic silage-like mass that can harm the soil and potentially scorch the plant roots. The optimal depth for loose organic materials like straw or hay is 5 to 10 centimetres after the material has settled. For heavier materials such as finished compost or aged manure, 3 to 5 centimetres is sufficient. As the mulch naturally decomposes and settles over time, you will need to replenish the layer. Do not pile it all on at once. It is much better practice to add small amounts gradually. topping it up perhaps every 2 weeks. What should you do with your mulch in the fall? Should you remove it or till it in? Advocates of natural gardening will tell you, don't dig it in under any circumstances. Just leave everything as it is. The remaining material will decompose over the winter, and in the spring you can simply rake aside the undigested bits and plant your transplants. This preserves the healthy soil structure created by earthworms. However, if you had a bad season for pests and diseases, you should rake up the mulch and dispose of it. You can send it to a hot compost pile where the pathogens will be destroyed, or simply burn it if the problem was severe. But here's the crucial warning. Do not bury fresh straw or woody mulch deep into the soil in the fall. Bacteria will immediately start to break it down, consuming all the available nitrogen in the process. Come springtime, your young plants will essentially starve. And finally, let's talk about combining methods. The ultimate skill for any gardener is creating a lasagna bed. The bottom layer is the nutrient layer, compost or well-aged manure, designed specifically to feed the roots. The top layer is purely protective, straw, wood chips or bark, to lock in moisture and deflect harsh sunlight. This layering technique provides a double benefit. Or consider a tree. Place sand right around the base of the trunk to prevent the bark from retaining moisture and rotting, and then transition to grass further out. Always experiment. Pay close attention to how your plants react. Are the leaves vibrant and firm? Great, you're doing well. Are they turning yellow? You might have a nitrogen deficiency. If so, apply manure tea directly over the existing mulch. Remember, your garden is your own personal laboratory. All right, everyone, let's summarize. Mulch is more than just a shortcut to save time weeding. It's a powerful tool that fundamentally changes the ecosystem of your garden beds. You stop being a slave to the watering can and the hoe, and instead, you become the conductor of an orchestra where the worms, bacteria, and organic matter all work together to boost your harvest. Always remember, there's no bad mulch, only incorrect application. Straw for tomatoes, pine needles for strawberries, and compost for anything that's hungry. Don't rush the process in the spring, don't skimp on the layer thickness in the summer, and absolutely don't be afraid to experiment. Start with just one garden bed this season. Try mulching it properly, and by the fall, you will see the difference for yourself. Your yield will be bigger, and your back pain will be much, much less. Thank you so much for watching until the very end. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell. Now let me know in the comments, what is the most unusual mulching material you've ever used or even heard about? Egg cartons? Wool? Share your experience below. Let's discuss it. See you next time in the garden.